Did you ever have a time where you realized a good friend wasn't actually your friend?
So I was going out with my friend for his birthday, and before I got over there, his first words to me was, "Why do you look better than me on my birthday?" Then while I was belligerently drunk, he was taking my phone without my knowledge, said that his phone was dead, and was using my card for everything. Meaning I paid for all the drinks, all the Ubers, and I didn't even know it because I was belligerently drunk. A week later, he was trying to get half of my videos taken down and tried to get my account taken down and then blocked me. And we were supposed to be friends for 5 years. I wish him well, though.
Yeah, earlier this year. Dude's name was Toby. He was an alcoholic. He was going through a divorce. Helped him get sober. Helped him get more positive. Then his son was diagnosed with kidney cancer. I made sure to go and see him in the hospital. Brought him food, drinks, whatever he needed. We worked at the same job. When I left, they were looking for another candidate. All I said to him was make sure you tell the new guy about the negative stuff as you tell him about the positive stuff. Most importantly, the changes in insurance. He got huffy and he looked at me and said, "It's not all bad, not everybody's sick like you." Meaning, needing insurance. Meanwhile, I was fighting HR for him. We wanted to put him on an FMLA because his son had cancer. And he was out for 2 days. Literally did everything for him. Covered shifts at work, emergency, on-call, everything. And then my wife's baby sister died. I shared the GoFundMe on Facebook. Didn't get a DM, phone call, nothing. Dude called me his best friend till he didn't need me anymore. Even went as far as asking for an old computer back that I fixed. Say he didn't want it.
This individual has shown me many times that they were not a good friend, but this was the situation that really did it for me. So I'm always there for her. Every time she has problems, I'm listening, I'm helping her, I'm always there. But for me, it's just like she couldn't do the same. So she would never really be listening, so I'll have to repeat stuff. Or she wouldn't give me good input. Like she'll give me bland input. Or she'll change the subject and make it about herself. She just never could listen to my problems. So one day I was really depressed. I was going through so much at this time. And I had texted her saying, "I'm happy I'm not suicidal. Because if I was, I would have unalived myself." This girl left me on red all night and then texted me the next morning saying good morning. And this was supposed to be my best friend. So no, she didn't bring it back up. She didn't ask me if I was okay. She just never talked about it ever again. And once again, this was my best friend.
I had a roommate who quickly became one of my best friends. We did everything together. She was even the first person that I told about my pregnancy to. She went with me to doctor's appointments, the Lamaze class, everything. And at the time we were living with her and her boyfriend, who was a childhood best friend of my brother. And she was quote unquote best friends with my son's dad. I didn't really have an issue with that because she had a boyfriend and I didn't really think there was anything going on. So fast forward 6 years, I get a call from her. She's living out of state now, to tell me that while I was pregnant, they slept together. Had to get it off her chest because it was eating her up inside, even though she had seen me for most of the 6 years and said nothing. Sat in front of my face and pretended like she was my friend.
In November 2019, I had lost my job and I'm a single parent. Granted, now my friend had lost their job a little while before that, and I was still kind of helping them out while I was working. I don't know what it was, but times was hard back then. Anywho, so I ended up just grabbing some random minimum wage job just so I could pay my bills because I'm a mama. And while I was working there, I realized that wasn't enough to pay my bills. My lights was getting cut off. We was running out of food, all kind of stuff. It was crazy in my house. So I sat there and I taught myself how to start my own business. And my business took off and it was doing pretty good from the jump. Every time I post, my friend never liked, never shared, never nothing. Every time I said something about my business, my friend, her whole energy just shifted out of the blue. But what was the icing on the cake? This goes turn around and tell Beyonce happy birthday on Instagram. Beyonce.
So I moved to LA about 4 years ago with a roommate that I called a friend for about 15 years before that. We agreed to split the rent 50-50. The first month we got there, the job wasn't coming through. Of course, I had his bag. I paid the rent. It's fine. It's not a big deal. 1 month turned into 2 months, turned into 3 months. He still hadn't heard back from the job, and I was still paying the rent. But what happened was he got lazy and he started to sleep in all day and smoke weed all day. And 3 months turned into 6 months and still no job, not being proactive about finding a job. And he decided to take a trip back home and never came back. Left me with all his furniture, all of his stuff. And on top of that, told everyone back home that he was paying my rent and I was smoking weed all day and being lazy all day, which was a complete lie.
So story time. I had a friend in high school. We met our freshman year. We bonded over the Beatles and being weird. And we were so tight in high school. And after high school, I thought our kids were going to grow up together. We were going to grow old together and be the Brown Golden Girls. Do it all. And then my mom died about 10 years ago, which severely impacted my emotional well-being. And it's taken years of therapy to deal with the issues. She was nowhere to be found. We couldn't get a hold of her by text, no phone calls, but she was active on Facebook. She finally comes around like a month after my mom died, and she messages me on Facebook saying that her phone got lost and she lost all her contacts and she had no way of getting hold of anybody, even though she was on Facebook. And then she messaged me on Facebook, but whatever. And I pointed out that I really could have used you during this time since, I was an emotional wreck. And she ghosted me. She never replied back. She literally made it seem like I was the bad guy because I was upset because my mom died and my friend wasn't there when I needed her. And that somehow, my problem. Years of therapy have also taught me that she's narcissistic as hell. But after that, she ghosted me for years. 4 years. We actually stayed friends on Facebook for years because I think it was my emotional thing. Until she made a comment that was anti-gay. And I knew all of her secrets in high school and all the girls she dated and all the girls she made out with. And I thought it was funny that she was being a hypocritical. So I commented and then I deleted her, which was very therapeutic. But come to find out, I talked to my oldest daughter, who is now a beautiful 19-year-old, and she even told me that she was pretty much a hateful to her when she was 5. A grown 20-something-year-old woman was a hateful to a little girl. I should also point out that this girl, not my daughter, my friend, my former friend, she's also a born-again Christian, so she's one of those types, hypocritical. And I kind of hope she sees this because we still have friends in common on Facebook. So, Carla, what's up?
This one was actually extremely traumatizing and a very long story. But to sum it up, I had a high school boyfriend of 6 years who became friends with a coworker and started hanging out with her quite a bit, who then introduced him to her sister, who then we all started hanging out. Like, I trusted him. I thought they were cool. I thought we all could be friends because I was naive and young, and we were together for a very long time, and I was head over heels. So anyways, I got very close with her sister, and we became like this. We would hang out all the time. All the time. Even my sister started hanging out with her. We would go to her house and hang out. We would go to sex shops together. We would do all kinds of stuff. Well, come to find out, she was hanging out with me while he was hanging out with her sister. Hanging out for over a year. And she knew about it the whole time. I was basically being distracted. Good times.
But I remember it like it was yesterday. I was in my junior year of high school, and I had planned to go to prom with about 5 of the homies, right? Or the so-called homies at the time. So like 2 weeks before prom, we had all agreed that we was all going to meet up at Applebee's, and then we was going to eat at Applebee's, then we was going to make our way downtown to take pictures, and then we was going to go to prom. So I got dripped out to the T because I thought I was about to really tee up with my peoples and them. Made sure I pulled up at the restaurant extra early just so I could get us a table, and I made sure to get us a reservation too. Got to the restaurant at 5, and I waited there for 2 hours, yo, in the North Carolina heat, and it was about 95 degrees that day for prom. I had even tried calling them and sending them multiple messages through their phone and on social media. I didn't get no type of response. When they picked the phone up once, they said hello and then hung up immediately. Eventually, I pulled up to the prom and I saw all of them there. Got to prom, they told me there was some rumor circulating around that I didn't rock with them, but they didn't even ask me if it was true. Watch who you call your friends.
This one time, I did. I broke up with my boyfriend and my best friend started hanging out with him. I asked them both, why are you guys hanging out with each other so much? They called me crazy and dramatic. And then they got married on my birthday. Yeah, that was a weird time.
I told my best friend at the time that I was considering getting weight loss surgery, and she said, oh my God, that's great. Could you do it before my wedding?
So I had a friend in high school that I met, and once we graduated, that friend moved to Chicago and was there for several years, and every year would try to convince me, or like anytime we talked, would try to convince me that I needed to move to Chicago and we could be roommates and things like that. It was something I was never interested in, so I would always turn her down. And then eventually, through some circumstances in my life, I decided to take her up on that offer. So I let her know, like, soon I'll be getting a plane ticket. I know your lease is up soon. I also used her address so that it looked like I had an in-state address on my application. So I had job interviews the day I got off the plane. So that morning, got off the plane. I'd never gone to Chicago either. Got off the plane, dropped off my stuff at her studio apartment, changed my clothes, and it was like in March, so it was freezing. And by the time I got back that night, she basically told me I had 3 days to stay with her and then I had to leave. And so yeah, it was around the time when people used to use Craigslist before people figured out it was a creepy place to be on. And I ended up finding roommates who needed someone to take over their third roommate's lease for the last month. And then eventually, long story short, I ended up staying for 2 years. But yeah, I mean, years worth of conversations about me moving to Chicago, and then I get there and she tells me I need to leave. To add to that, several years later, I moved back to my home state, and she asked to come and live with me and try to get a job and things like that, and I stupidly oblige. And overall, what ends up happening in that situation is that I pretty much had to find the jobs for her, and I realized pretty quickly that she wasn't planning on like leaving my living room, because I had a 1-bedroom, so she was staying in my living room. And I remember having to direct her on where to apply and taking her to interviews and things like that. And then eventually I realized that she actually wasn't really looking for a job, and some things happened to her to the point where she ended up moving back to Chicago.
So I used to have this one friend, right? And me and her were best friends, the whole 9 yards. She lived down the street from my house. We were friends for years, like since elementary school, right? And I dated this guy, and he cheated on me a couple times, so I broke up with him. And I was hanging out with her months later, and I had her phone. I don't remember why I had her phone, but I had her phone, and something told me to go onto her Kick and read their messages. And I opened it. I was like, nah, I feel weird. I exited the app, and then I was like, nah, look at it. So I opened it again. I scrolled up, and there was a message of them talking to each other while we were dating. Haven't spoken to her since that happened.
Ooh, me. So I had this best friend that I pretty much grew up with. And I ended up going to live with them for a while, her and her family, because my mom was battling some issues where she couldn't keep a place. So we all shared a room, my best friend and her two little sisters and myself. 4 of us. Wasn't ideal, but it is what it is. One day I was cleaning the room and I found a letter, a handwritten letter to my boyfriend at the time. And it was written by my best friend's little sister. Turns out she was with my boyfriend. And my best friend was assisting her so that she wouldn't get caught. True story. Things went south. I moved out the house, but I ended up making up with my best friend. Fast forward about 15 years later, and the same sister, my best friend's little sister, who was messing with my boyfriend years ago, my fiance. True story. I cut the whole family off. Now I have no friends, but I'm perfectly okay with that.
Woo, I'll be all day, but I'm gonna just tell y'all about this one incident. So one time, $100 bill came up missing. A client had came over to buy vendors from me. So I'm like, I know this girl ain't paid me for the vendors and the money and then stole the money back from me. So I'm like, okay, so the girl like me, I promise you, I ain't stole no money from you. I promise you I wouldn't do that. So we looking for the money everywhere. Me, my neighbor, which was my friend, and the girl. So all of a sudden, my neighbor go, here it is, girl, I found it. So another time, I laid out some money, and the money came up missing. And the next day, I was like, you seen that $20 that was on my couch? My friend had spent the night over here. She was like, yeah, my son put it in my purse thinking it was mine. Girl, here you go. So now I'm realizing you the thief.
Okay, I literally just woke up, so ignore all this. But unfortunately, last year I did have a childhood friend kill himself, which was extremely upsetting. So I decided to confide in one of my closer friends at the time. So I was crying one night because I was just thinking of him and missing him a lot. And I Snapchatted her, and I was like, I really don't know what to do. I'm so upset about him. Like, why did this happen, basically? I don't know what else to do or even what to think. And she left me on red. And she answered me an hour later, and it was her with a margarita, and she was like this. And that is when I knew we were not friends.
Okay, fasten your seatbelts. This one's going to be a bumpy ride. I have already spoken about my story on this page with my roommates and the way that they abused me, manipulated me, gaslight me, and eventually tried to convince me to unalive myself. These people were my best friends in the entire world until one day they decided that they weren't. But this isn't about them. This is about my other friends at the time. My friends who knew me and who knew my roommates and chose not to believe me. My roommates were known around campus as people who would never hurt anyone, couldn't harm a fly, some of the kindest people you'd ever meet. So when it was 4 against 1, my odds were not looking good. And I knew that. And they knew that. I think because they knew that, they were so willing to do everything so blatantly and brazenly, knowing that even if they abused me in front of other people, no one would believe me. And they were right. I had friends at the time who were physically present during abusive situations. I had friends who I showed screenshots of text messages from my roommates, giving me a list of reasons why I shouldn't be alive. And those people didn't believe me. To my face, they acted like they did, so I continued to trust them and keep them in my life as a support system and confidants. But what I didn't know was that behind my back, they were telling other people that I was making it all up and I was being dramatic. even though they had seen it with their own 2 eyes. By the end of my senior year of college, I didn't have a lot of friends anymore. And now, a year and a half post-grad, that number has continued to shrink. And it hurt at first. It still does. But if I really think about it, I don't want people in my life who aren't going to believe me. And the reason I bring this all up now is because we need to believe victims of abuse when they say that women and femme-presenting people have abused them. Because the same people who witnessed my abuse and then lied about it are the people who were sharing to their Instagram stories saying, please tell me if I'm friends with your abuser. I don't want to have that kind of person in my life. And I think that we as a society have built up this reputation for women and femme-presenting people that they're also innocent and kind and that they couldn't hurt people. And that's not true, because abusers are more than just men. If someone in your life tells you that someone of any gender has abused them, you believe them.